Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the 2011 book by Rick Riordan, The Kane Chronicles, The Throne of Fire. This is the second book in the Kane Chronicles series. This takes place 3 months after the Red Pyramid ends. So we got the Red Pyramid, the Throne of Fire, and the Serpent Shadow. So we know that Apophis is the serpent, right? We know that Apophis is working with Set, who's the god of evil. Apophis is the god of chaos. So evil and chaos go together. So we leave off with Set kind of like banished into the duat, but like mutually agrees that he'll like work with the Kanes if he can, but he wants to kill them at the same time. So, and we've discussed how I love how the, antagonist helps the protagonist in the future. So as the story continues, right, 3 months later, what happens? So there's a call at the end of the first book that if anyone has godly powers, come to Brooklyn House, we'll help you out. So now we have Walt, we have Jazz, we have Felix, we have a bunch of other kids who are descended from the pharaohs, have blood of the pharaohs in them with their own special magical abilities. So they're learning the ways of the Egyptian for the 3 months duration of this. So now that Apophis is still rising and Ra is still missing, we need to figure out, we as in Carter and Sadie, need to figure out what the hell to do in order to defeat Apophis, but also keep Ra on the throne so that way Isis doesn't make Osiris, their father, ruler to then break apart the gods yet again. They don't want history to repeat itself that way. They want history to repeat itself by Ra rising above. So Bast, the cat goddess, was like, a lieutenant, warrior for Ra. Hasn't seen Ra in forever. No one's seen Ra in forever. Bast's friend Bess, who is the dwarf god, hysterical character that he is, boos everyone perfectly, goes into a lot of history about dwarves and celebrations of deformities and things of that nature through Egyptians and the Russians. We're in Russia for a lot of this story. We're in London for a lot of this story, but we're in the Duat in Egypt for a good half of the book. So we have Michel, M-I-C-H-E-L. I don't know how you say that in French. I'm assuming Michel Desjardins. He is now the ruler of the House of Life. He's the leader of the House of Life. He's the head magician, the big honcho, the #1 most powerful magician through the House of Life. And we know that he is now that because of the ending of the last one. He's still out to destroy the Kanes, but learns along the way that he has to trust them in order to get things back to how it was. So Desjardins is the thing. This evil Russian magician named Mishikov. I can never say his last name correctly, but Vladimir Mishiklov, something. He's a big, powerful magician as well. So the premise of this, 3 months later, is you need the Book of Ra in order to find Ra, to make sure Ra can go back up and rise into the heavens yet again. So the Book of Ra is not an actual book. It's not a book. It's like a scroll. It's a papyrus scroll. And it's been broken into 3 different sections with different pieces throughout. So the kids find one section, then they have to go to London and then Russia for another section, then they go to Egypt for another section, but they all have their different adventures along the way. Now, Sadie, of course, is still in love with Anubis, but Walt is the new character around. He's a descendant of Anakin, who is the father of Tutankhamun. And then there's the Anakin curse along the way that Walt is still suffering, so he's going to die soon, which leads into Walt's story continuing in the 3rd book, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's interesting having the fights in London, having the fights in Russia, having the fights in Egypt, and then being in the Duat, going through the different cycles of night on Osiris's boat, to then find Ra's boat, to then find Ra in an assisted living home in the Duat called, what is it, Sunnyside Acres or something like that. And Thworet, the hippopotamus goddess, she is, the caretaker of all the forgotten minority gods or the forgotten gods in general. So Ra is then taken, but he's senile and he's old and he can't remember anything and he's acting like a baby. So like they got to figure things out, and the kids, keep going, and they bet some time with the moon god, which was pretty cool. Kanum, I think that's his name. I don't know how to say it. What else? And then there's major fights in the Duat. Desjardins then helps the kids against the evil Russian magician because he hosts Apophis, but then Apophis is then banished, kind of by Desjardins, who does a sacrifice to help the kids then escape back to Brooklyn House, to then show the leopard cloak of Desjardins, saying, this is what happened. Amos is now the most strongest magician. We have to all work together with the gods to make sure chaos does not rise, to make sure Apophis does not destroy Ma'at, the universe, goddess of truth. So it's pretty intricate that it all like comes together, right? And it's cool how it ends, because it ends with them all, you know, saving the day, but like knowing that Apophis is going to fully rise, not just the temporary, you know, hosting in Michiklav, but a full rise kind of a thing. It was nice seeing Osiris as the Kane's dad, their mom in ghostly form. It was nice having that little moment together. They played Senate a lot, which was it's like checkers, but like not, and it got sticks involved. I don't know how to play, but blue and white checkerboard. I'm all for checkerboard, so let's do it. My favorite part of this book is actually one of my top 5 favorite moments of all the books I've ever read. And I'm just going to read off the chapter titles, because it was 2 specific chapters. Chapter 15, Camels Are Evil, page 250. And chapter 16, But Not As Evil as Romans, 264. Now, that has Walt and Sadie in Egypt under a date farmer's field, and like it's an undiscovered tomb with all these different mummies, and it was actually from Roman times, the main part. So it has these Roman mummies when Roman conquered, whatever, when the Roman Empire was taking charge of Egypt. And then further down the crypts, you had the ancient Egyptian part of mummies. So you had different generations, different dynasties of different empires of mummies. And there was a Roman ghost who was explaining how the Romans can't go to their afterlife because they were prepped for the Egyptian afterlife. So like they're kind of in a purgatory state because they can't go anywhere, because the priests never finished the ceremonies. They did a botched job just to like put the mummies away, because they all died from a waning disease or something like that. And then the horror aspect of the creeping mummies, you know, creepily walking down the tunnels and trying to get help from the god Ptah, Ptah, I think that's how you say his name, who's like the rat god, the plague god or whatever. No, he's not a plague god. I forget his title. But he then helps them with rats to disintegrate, to eat all the mummy remnants, so that way the mummies can actually go to their own afterlife, because the Roman afterlife is different than the Egyptian afterlife. So it was very cool having that horror, creepy, like I got chills down my spine just remembering reading those 2 chapters. Those 2 chapters are peak Riordan when it comes to writing, because it wasn't funny. It was serious, and it was actually scary at times. So Rick is really great with writing comedy. He's really great with writing drama, levels of sincerity and loyalty, but it's very rare that you see him write horror. And 15 and 16 of The Throne of Fire was pure horror. Like, I'm still creeped out, and I've read this book so many times, and I'm still creeped out 10 years later. It's so great. If you want to read any form of that, I would just suggest read those 2 chapters, because it's its own story. The movie is the Kane Chronicles are going to be a movie series, trilogy series on Netflix. I am worried, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in these books that I know are going to get cut, and I will cry my eyes out, and I'll talk about it when the movie eventually comes out. If they cut this scene of Sadie and Walt in the tombs under the Egyptian date farmer farm, after the water tower explodes and breaks open the roof, and the Roman ghost is like showing them how to get to this 3rd book, and then the god Ptah actually helps them, you know, get the last piece of the Book of Ra. Like, I will be very upset if that scene is quickly cut or like eradicated completely. I don't know how you can eradicate it completely, because they actually do need to get the last pieces of the Book of Ra. So like, I don't know, but like, I love that scene. It's an incredible scene, chapter 15 and 16. So I think we're good. I'm talking about The Throne of Fire by Rick Riordan, 2011, book 2 in the Kane Chronicles series. Yeah, The Throne of Fire here You have Sadie and Carter Kane on Ra's boat. That is what Ra sits on as he ascends to heaven, which is interesting because it's referenced in the Bible, it's referenced in other mythologies, it's referenced in other religions, but religions are mythologies. What is a myth? A story. There's your old tie-in, full circle back. The true belief is that the throne of fire was the ancients' way of simplifying an alien ascension, that they were extraterrestrials and something looked like a throne at some point, but it was lifting up. So the fire of the rockets, engines, bringing it up, is what was the ascension. So it's pretty cool knowing that alien history of it. Aside from that, different religions have their different versions of it. And what is a myth? A myth is a story. Welcome to Mythology 101. Everybody, help you grab your pencils and open your notebooks to your first page. Today's date is March? No, it's not March. What the hell's date is it? April. April 16th. Yeah, so here's a little fun fact in that. The House of Life is a real thing. Like, Egyptian magic's a real thing. So, like, it's documented, and, like, there's a big thing with a common belief, if you will, that there were two sects, S-E-C-T-S, sects, fighting over something within the Library of Alexandria, and that's why it caught fire, and most of it was destroyed. It was because certain knowledge that was kept in there was not meant to be shared to the world, but I know somebody knows something. The truth is out there. All right, we're done. Okay. Throne of Fire, Rick Riordan, awesome book. Go check it out. Mucho mahalo.